I'll just stop the song. Just stop it right there. I can't fade out. I don't have that control. Actually, would have that control. I guess I could fade out if I used a certain tool set. Anyway, hello. Welcome to 3 Beers Deep for September 1st. We are trucking along. It is the day of Mad Max, Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, and also of 3 Beers Deep, which would normally be recording on a Monday morning, but I was in PAX in Seattle, Washington the last couple of days. Didn't get back until 10 p.m. last night, and so I wasn't going to record at 10 p.m. last night. I was exhausted. I remain exhausted. I will probably be exhausted tomorrow as well because PAX was a phenomenal time. Lots of great people, great friends, great drinks, great panels, amazing moments, some excellent games as well. But I'm here on Twitch to answer your questions. Folks have sent them in to patrickcullick.tumblr.com. If you're in the Twitch chat, I'll be checking that as well. Feel free to dump in some questions about PAX, games that are coming out this week and in the weeks ahead. And we'll do this for 20, 30 minutes and see where it goes, you know, which will probably be, it will go for 20 or 30 minutes, and then we will stop doing it. And then we'll do it again next week. And I kind of got a thing going here, so we're not going to rock the boat too much. All right, so let me pull up Twitch. Let me pull up my questions. Santa R, you should check out Fran Bao, a horror point-and-click adventure game about a girl struggling with mental issues. I really enjoyed it. Very somber, creepy, atmospheric, and very polished. And it's made by 2 people, even. I think it will be right up your alley. It's a game I have been keeping my eye on. They've been letting me know that it was coming out, actually. I like the fact that people know I'm into horror games, and they will actually seek me out and tell me, hey, we've got this cool horror game. Often it's not a cool horror game. Often it's not a particularly great game. But every once in a while there is something that is interesting. And I like the fact that in the last couple of years it seems like games, especially horror games, have decided to try and tackle the concept of mental illness and to see if there's a way to present that in an interactive format that is a little bit different than how games usually, and especially horror games or horror in general, treats mental illness, which is to say it is often treated as a punchline or a joke, or that people are crazy, and so you'll set things in insane asylums or psychiatric wards in which you present people with mental illness as dangerous and killers, as though any form of mental illness is something to be afraid of. So I'm much more interested in games looking at the nuance of that, which is that everyone that has mental illness is not all the way on that spectrum. In fact, there's a wide spectrum, a huge range of mental illness, and so it sounds like Fran Bao is trying to approach that in hopefully an interesting way. I can't say for sure, but I'm looking forward to checking out. Feder Dave, forget the questions. Just saying, Little Miss can't be wrong for the rest of the video. Yeah, there's a video of at PAX. The first night my wife got in, or first morning, my wife and I flew in really, really early, just because it was a cheaper flight to get out there. And so, you know, I was working that day, and she was exploring the city. And then at night, we went and got like a great dinner. Like right on the water, like an excellent seafood, had a great crab BLT. It was delicious. And then we went over to a Giant Bomb sort of mini panel that kicks off PAX that is also combined with a bunch of drinking at this comedy space that GameSpot and Giant Bomb had rented out for PAX Prime this year. And then after the panel that the guys did, there was harmonics, so they set up a little rock band thing, as they want to do. They walk around with a rock band set up and plug it in wherever someone will let them. And so Giant Bomb let them plug it in there. And what I didn't want to participate. I had no interest in singing or playing guitar. Not that because I'm not interested in rock band, but because that's not what I'm there for. I'm at PAX to talk to people. I'm at PAX to interact with folks. I'm at PAX to have drinks and catch up. And although I'm excited for Rock Band 4, I will play that when Rock Band 4 comes out. And my wife was actually trying to get a band together, and she asked me, and I said no. I don't want to do it. I'm talking to these wonderful people. I've got my hands full. And then around, it was later in the night, towards the end of the evening, and the Giant Bomb music comes and said, hey, I have a favor to ask you. And I said, well, of course, please tell me this favor. I want to help you with this. And he said, we need a front man for our band. We need someone to sing. And I said, I didn't expect this. This is not how I wanted this to go down. I just told my wife no, and I'm about to tell you yes. I'm going to get in trouble for this, which I did get in trouble for this in a fun way. It was fine. And so we go up on stage, and the band that was already put together wanted to sing The Joker, which is a song I'm not a particular fan of. Sure, it's fine for late night drunken rambling, and I do know a decent amount of the words, but there's not like a lot of room for interpretation. There's not a lot of, I can't like really get a performance going on stage. So I get up, and Eric Pope of Harmonix, who was helping run the whole thing, looks at me and goes, like, what song are you doing? I was like, I guess they want to do The Joker. And he said, you're not doing that. I was like, okay. So instead he picked some Spin Doctors song, which according to Feder Dave is Little Miss Can't Be Wrong, which I've never heard before. I've heard like the other Spin Doctors song, but never really got into the band. So, you know, it's one thing when your own home to be doing a rock band song that you've never heard of, that you can kind of fumble through, kind of learn, be experimental. This was on stage in which half of it was performative because Alex and Jeff and some other folks were doing judges and critiques. And so I said, okay, I'm not going to be able to do the song, so I'm just going to go for it on performance. So I went for it. I wiggled my hips. I shaked my ass. I kicked my feet in the air. I shouted no a bunch. There's a video on YouTube. If you go to Giant Bomb's YouTube page, there is a full archive of the entire night, and mine happened somewhere after the 3-hour point. It's one of the second or third to last band that actually was even participating. And then someone, I think under the Giant Bomb, I don't know, someone isolated it. If you do a Google search on or a search on YouTube, you can probably find, if you just search like Patrick Klepek rock band, you might find a couple of interesting videos that come out of it. But it was a lot of fun. I had a great time. I may or may not have been inebriated, but that's kind of what you want out of Rock Band. My favorite Rock Band moments, both in dumb public things that I've done and in private, have always been with a little alcohol, getting you to do something a little bit out of your comfort zone, and that's exactly what that was as well. Folks kind of general asking how PAX was in the Twitch chat, and it was great. I had a ton of fun. It was it's never a show that I go to play a lot of things. I will kind of break down some of the games that I played on Match 3 tonight, which I'll be recording with Keita Jackson and Sam Phillips, who if all things go right, I hope to have a PAX panel with the two of them next year in Seattle. I think that would be a tremendous amount of fun, and it was great hearing from folks in Seattle that they were listening to the podcast, they were enjoying it. That makes me so incredibly happy. If you're watching this and are not listening to that, please do seek that out on iTunes. It's something I'm enormously proud of to record each week, and even though I'm exhausted, my voice is shot, I cannot wait to talk with them tonight to see what they've been up to and to let them know what I was doing in Seattle at PAX. Jay Palladino 89 says, hey Patrick, as a fellow horror movie buff, I've been loving the last few years. The Babadook in particular really hit the sweet spot for me. An upcoming film called The Witch, directed by Robert Eggers. Go check that trailer out. It looks fantastic. Also looks up fantastic. It might be up your alley. I was curious how you usually discover gems, and if there are any glaring gaps in the genre for you. In the grand scheme of things, I've barely seen anything from 1960s, 1970s, outside of Black Sabbath and The Fly. That wasn't my response. My response is actually, one, yes, horror has been in a fantastic place the last 3 or 4 years. Just a lot of really creative things happening, despite the fact that, like for a while, it was like in the early 2000s, like Saw took everything over. And while Saw was kind of fun the first couple of times, it was getting pretty boring and stale as the series went on, in which I just stopped watching them entirely. And Paranormal Activity, which was a revelation in at least the first one and the third one, has become extremely stale to the point that I don't even know if I can manage to get interested in going to the theater for the concluding chapter that's coming out. I don't know if it's this fall or early next year, but it's coming. Paranormal Activity, The Ghost Dimension. At the point that your subtitles have become a joke, then maybe the series has become a joke and you should stop doing it. But The Witch does look fantastic. I'm really looking forward to that, as I mentioned before. And I'm actually with you, J Palladino 89, in that the gap in my horror knowledge is basically pre-80s. I have seen some things from the 70s and 60s, and I've always kind of written down a series of films that people have told me, look, even though they're not contemporary, they're still going to be creepy, they're still interesting. I guess part of the problem with watching films pre-70s and 80s is that they just, our tastes changed and the way we're accustomed to being scared changed, and so it's while those movies may be interesting, still they are often not scary. And while not the intent of every horror film I watch is not to be, scared out of my wits, that is certainly part of the appeal. That is kind of part of the fun. And so when that doesn't happen, and there are other films in which that could happen. It is, a matter of priority, and then sometimes those don't get prioritized as much as I would like to have a more holistic understanding of the genre that I love so much. Lee Costigan, did you ever see The Gift? It was a surprisingly awesome throwback to 90s thrillers that punches above its own weight. No, but I've heard that from lots of people. And, one of the things that's kind of happened to me is that I end up kind of not going to the movie theater to see anything but sort of like superhero movies or big action stuff like Mad Max. And I watch everything else at home. And so it means that I often am not able to comment or talk about or participate in conversations about more films as they kind of come out. I just, it's kind of nice to just be at home, pay $6.99 on iTunes, and just watch it on my 60-inch television. That is a really cheap, nice way to watch a lot of those films. But I wish I could be more up to date on horror. And so one of the things I've been talking about with my wife, in fact, I already ordered another microphone for it, is that I'm hoping to premiere in the first week of October a horror podcast in which her and I, the two of us, by ourselves, talk about a different horror film each week, in which 1 week it'll be, the new horror film like The Gift or Paranormal Activity, The Ghost Dimension. The next week it'll be something from a back catalog. Like, wouldn't it have been great this week to do something about The Nightmare on Elm Street or A Nightmare on Elm Street? I always kind of get those mixed up. And I haven't created anything regular and lasting other than my marriage. That was a weird setup for this. I mean, sort of in terms of media with my wife, and I've really enjoyed in the last 8 months or so, like getting her involved in my streams and having her on various podcast things. And so I think that's going to be something we do in October, which I'm really excited about. I don't have a name. I don't know if we'll stick to a weekly format. I think bi-weekly will probably be something that fits a little more in our schedule in terms of recording and watching movies. But we'll see. Otherwise, I think that's going to be a way that I can sort of break out of that mold and watch things from the 50s, 60s, and 70s in a way that I wouldn't when it's just my own free time. But if I'm doing it for a podcast, maybe I can find the free time. And Dan Ocasa says, sounds kind of like a horror movie club. It sounds great. Yeah, the idea would be that you would announce in advance what the movie was, so everyone had a chance to watch it for the week. People could submit questions. We could analyze the movie. It sounds great. I'm really excited about it, so look for that probably in October, time to Halloween and Shocktober and everything like that. Next up, Farinelli, have any of the recent Metal Gear Solid 5 appraisals excited or disappointed you? It sort of doesn't mean anything to me because I had every intention of playing that game regardless. It's actually, I had it preloading on my machine while I was waiting to sit down and do 3 Beers Deep, and I'm hoping to check out some of it this evening. I'm going to be gone this weekend and next weekend, so I am really don't have. I'm like the time that I need for these 2 games that are coming out. Mad Max and Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. I don't really have, but I'm going to dig into them anyway. And Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain, as I've mentioned in previous 3 Beers Deeps and elsewhere on the internet, is just a game that I have to know. I want to see what it is, what makes it tick. Even if I hate it, even if I don't think it's interesting, I want to know. And so I don't know that the reviews have swayed me one way or the other because, essentially, here's how game reviewing tends to work out. This is not always true, but it is often true that the super fans, the people that are enthusiasts for a certain type of game, often end up being the people that review it. So, that's true of a lot of things that I do. I tend to review the horror stuff. But what that does is it certain lends a certain lack of perspective sometimes. So, I think for some people, maybe they want to know what a horror person thinks of, Soma or any other upcoming horror game or Alien Isolation. They're looking for that added expertise in the analysis, the critique, and in the sense of whether it's something that's worth playing. Whereas for me, because my favorite Metal Gear games are 1 and 3 and not 2 and 4, But Metal Gear evangelists, Metal Gear superfans tend to either like the whole catalog or be really into 2 and 4. Their opinion of 5 means less to me because I'm looking for a very specific viewpoint, which are people that are kind of interested in Metal Gear or think it's fascinating from a distance, but have some serious problems with Kojima's storytelling, both from a structural standpoint and from his approach to like the females in his game and the way he tends to sexualize them. So like all those things are kind of like, for someone who has that sort of opinion of Kojima and the Metal Gear games, what do they think of the Phantom Pain? So if there are reviews like that that you think come from that angle, please let me know. I'd be happy to check them out. But I guess, give it an hour and I can just load that game up myself and kind of make my own opinion. But we'll probably check out Mad Max or Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, as part of the morning stream tomorrow and Thursday. I'll be leaving Thursday night for the thing I'm doing over the weekend. And I'm looking forward to checking that out for both myself and with all of you, because, again, like I said, I've got to know. Jader9920, when do we have con saturation? How many is too many, or are there too many already? Well, so the thing about conventions, and what you have to remember, is that not everyone gets to go to PAX Prime. Not everyone can afford to go to PAX East. Not everyone can afford to go to PAX South. Often, there are lots of people that love video games or board games or virtual reality or like to hang out game fans or want to come to a Giant Bomb event or whatever, and they may not have the financial capacity to travel across the country. And the more conventions there are more opportunities for those people to go to something that's local, that is affordable, for them to get a little bit of the experience that lots of other people get when they go to Prime or PAX East or any of the other events that are happening all year round. Now, granted, as someone that travels to a lot of these, that covers a lot of them or participates in a lot of them, yes, I do feel like the amount of conventions is getting to a saturation point in which, please God, stop. I can't afford the mental, physical, and financial energy in order to attend all of these, especially when I'm going sort of on my own personal dime and not on the company dime, which was the case at PAX Prime this year. That's something where I did a little bit for Kotaku, so I got like a tiny bit of my expenses covered, but by and large, me and my wife were paying our way there because we wanted to see people, to hang out with people, because PAX is important for me to connect with my audience, and to show my wife a little bit of what I do for a living that is beyond just the archives she finds on iTunes and YouTube and Twitch. So yes, I mean, I think there's a lot of different angles, but I think the idea that there are millions of people that enjoy games but don't necessarily have friend groups that allow them to enjoy them with people that isn't on the internet, I think if more conventions allow them to have a little bit of what I get all the time, I think that's a worthwhile endeavor, and that just means I don't go to all of them or things like that, and I think that's okay. Wicked Nick, will you be playing Destiny Taken King? I will be playing Destiny Taken King. I am looking forward to checking that out later in the month. Again, with Mad Max and Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, there's a lot of games happening right now. Soma is coming out later this month. I'm playing through a horror game called Stasis on my laptop right now. It's great, by the way. It's on Steam. It's kind of like Sanitarium, if you are aware of that. If you liked a game like Sanitarium, you're probably going to like a game like Stasis. I'll be writing about it either today or tomorrow for Kotaku. And yeah, there's just a lot of games. There's a lot of games. So I want to try Destiny because I played Destiny up through the end of the storyline for the original game, and it didn't do anything for me. I didn't really want to play anything beyond that. I was just sort of like, I was kind of hoping I was getting a brand new Halo from Bungie. That's not what Destiny was, but it does appear that a lot of changes have been made to Destiny in that first year that are taking part for the Taken King, in which hopefully that will be a little more palatable to folks like myself, and also for folks that just don't have as much time to dedicate to it. It seems like they've balanced out a bunch of that stuff to make it work a lot better. So we'll see. But like I said, you start adding up all those games and the amount of time that you have to dedicate to finish all that stuff, and it's September 1st, but I feel like my September has already gone away. And that doesn't even include Mario Maker or whatever other games are coming out this month that I'm just not going to think about. I'm just not going to think about it. Tremegas, Patrick, will you ever go clean shaven again? My wife asks me that every once in a while, but I really don't like shaving. I just don't. So I'm not going to say it won't happen, but I don't like shaving. I really don't like shaving. Theon Greyjoy, just how drunk were you during Giant Bomb's Rock Band event? Not as drunk as it was conveyed through the stream. I mean, obviously, I'd had some drinks, but I really wanted to go for it. The performative aspect of Rock Band is important to me, and so I really just wanted to lean into it, and so that was a lot of fun to do, and I'm glad people had a good time because it seemed like a lot of the bands that were going up there were just kind of going up there and just kind of standing there and just kind of barely singing, and I was like, no, if I'm going to do this, I'm going 120% raw, and so that's what I did, and I was very happy with my performance. I was having a performance at the PAX Rumble, which I also was able to participate in. I had told Aaron Trites of Harmonix when I first got to PAX that, hey, if you need someone to fill in, I'll be at the Rumble. Just let me know. But had no illusions, no plans to be in the Rumble. And then I walked in 30 seconds before it started, and he said, hey, you know that thing you told me 2 days ago? I'm going to ask you for that favor. And so I looked in my bag and went, I didn't want to be one of those people that showed up to the PAX Rumble and didn't have a character. That would make me upset. I feel like that's part of being at the PAX Rumble. And so I looked in my bag and I found an umbrella, and I made do with what I had. And I shook my hips when I threw people out of the ring, and that felt pretty good. But if I have the honor, if I allow them to invite me back to the PAX Rumble at PAX East, maybe, just maybe, I'll do something a little more interesting than bring an umbrella on stage. All right, let's bring it down to the last question as we wrap up 3 Beers Deep for the morning. This is actually, I like this one. So, Mr. Fluke, I'm conflicted, Scoops. I'm a fan of Kojima and Metal Gear, but all the stories coming out of Konami and how they treat their workers has me actively disliking them as a publisher. One of the things I always remember from your time on Giant Bomb is how you always talked about supporting the developers' hard work regardless of AAA or indie. But who does buying Metal Gear Solid 5 really support now that Kojima Productions is no more? Essentially, he's getting at the ethical dilemma of if you buy into and believe the several reports that have both come from legitimate Japanese newspapers. There was one on Kotaku a couple of weeks back as well from Brian Ashcraft, in which it appears that Konami does not treat its workers really well, tyrannically. In fact, it often, has been analogized to being sort of, a prisoner. Now, obviously, they are free to leave and go work at other places. They are not actual prisoners, but in terms of how they treat their workers, obviously, it is appears to be pretty disgusting and weird. And the fact that they're able to get away with it is disturbing. And the fact that people feel either obligated or the fact that people continue to work there is unfortunate. It may be reflective of cultural differences that we can't quite understand, or maybe there are plenty of people who that's their job, and they need to support their family. There are all sorts of reasons why they would continue to work there that we are not in a position to judge at all. And yet, you as the consumer are presented with this idea that, well, do I want to support those poor business practices that offend me as a human being? But I really want to play this new Metal Gear game and support the designer, Hideo Kojima, who has brought me a lot of joy over the years. I'm speaking for other people. I'm not necessarily speaking for myself in this situation. But regardless, that's sort of what is set up here. And I think you have to realize, and this is my gut feeling, that Konami is moving in a direction regardless of what happens with Metal Gear Solid 5, the Phantom Pain. I think it's possible they may still continue to make Metal Gear games. They may continue to make Silent Hill games. They may continue to make another Suikoden for some reason. But Konami is not going to be that publisher moving forward. They're not going to be the studio that we've come to know for the last 20 years. They're going to be something different that maybe occasionally does these prestige titles. But, I think it's also possible that that's just been a bunch of sort of hot air as a way to not deflate interest in Metal Gear Solid 5 as it's rolled towards its release. That, even if Konami is getting out of that, it's going to continue to be a very important title for them because they want to make their money back on the Phantom Pain. But when it comes to this idea of supporting or not supporting Konami or supporting or not supporting Kojima, I think you have to ask yourself that question. Are your principles, do they run deep enough that you are willing to starve yourself of something like the Phantom Pain in order to prove a point that will actually not get proven unless lots of other people make it for you? And that's kind of this runs so far beyond this choice with Metal Gear. This is when you choose to recycle. This is when you choose to take a bus instead of drive your car. Often we do not make individual impacts. They are only felt through collective action, in which we all take small actions. And unfortunately, I don't think it has not been proven in the past that when it comes to things people like, things people want, that video game fans have been able to kind of buckle up and make good on that. The famous instance in the past was when Modern Warfare 2 is not going to have dedicated servers for the game on the PC, and there were whole boycott groups started on Steam, which users said, we are not buying this game. And there was that screenshot on launch day in which every single one of those people was playing Modern Warfare 2. Every single one, and paid $60. So if you do want to prove a point about Konami, a lot of people have to make that game seem like a disappointment. And you know what? It's possible that the Phantom Pain is going to be a disappointment no matter what, that the amount of money Konami has spent on it, there's just no way for them to make that back, and that, whether you choose to buy it or not buy it actually wouldn't make much of a difference one way or the other. But it's an interesting question. I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are on it. Maybe we'll address that during a Metal Gear stream tomorrow morning. Please let me know at patrickklepek.tumblr.com. What do you think about the idea of buying or not buying Metal Gear Solid 5, and what that says about sort of like the ethical dilemma of supporting a company that you believe has questionable business practices, and getting behind the designer that you at the very least find interesting. So that's going to do it for 3 Beers Deep. You can find the archive to this at youtube.com/PatrickKlepek. The audio version goes up under inventory management on iTunes. I am recording match 3, as I mentioned earlier, with Sam Phillips and Gita Jackson. You can also find that on iTunes. 3 Beers Deep traditionally is going to be a Monday morning show, but sometimes if my schedule doesn't allow it, we'll be doing it on Tuesday mornings. But the idea is that we're doing these live going forward, and you can listen to the archives if you can't catch the live version. But thanks so much for tuning in. I will see you guys tomorrow morning for Metal Gear. Guys and gals, I keep trying to rip that out of my vocabulary, and I keep saying it because it is a verbal tick. I apologize to me for being disappointed in myself. But that does it for 3 Beers Deep. Everyone enjoy your day. See ya.